Albert Breer is joining us. And I've been saying this about the schedule today is, for instance, people said Chicago had the roughest schedule. But if you look at it, it starts soft. They get the Lions, Packers at home late. And then in the middle, a dome and a warm weather team as the weather turns in Chicago. An old journalist told me there's two ways to write the same story. There are a lot of different ways to take tough games, how you parse them out. Denver, brutal. Chicago, there's no, the toughest two-game stretch is at the very end of the season. They get warm weather dome teams coming into Chicago and the weather stinks. You, during the break, you brought up something about San Francisco that I think is fascinating. The NFL, so there's the Chicago schedule on the screen. So, I mean, look at this. Now, here's my take on this, is that, all those home games to start. I mean, that is, they want Chicago to be good in the news. They did not front load the schedule. They made it very negotiable. You had a thought on but the NFL does punish those. It's not a ping pong lottery. What did they do to the Niners that you noticed?
Yeah. So and this is something a couple of people pointed out to me, was how when you're coming back from Australia, that game's on Thursday, but it's actually a Friday game over there. And now you're traveling back 18 hours or whatever the trip is to get back to San Francisco. You've got to reacclimate. You've got to reset. And on the other side of that, they gave the Rams an extra day where the Rams are going to play the following Monday night. The Niners are playing that Sunday afternoon, which is an interesting twist. And you hear a little bit about some of the things that were going back and forth, and you go back to the owners' meeting, and Kyle Shanahan was vocal in his criticism of the league with this, and that they're putting us in Australia, and they're already taking a home game away of ours and taking that home game away and putting us in Mexico City. And so I think half jokingly, he suggested, well, why don't you put the Rams with us in Mexico City then to even it out? So not only did they not do that, they gave the Rams the extra day of rest on the back end of the Australia trip.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, within a month after the Australia trip, the Niners also have their first game with the Seahawks and a game with the Broncos.
So they got a little lippy.
Well, I know this. Yeah. That international thing is a big deal for the owners. The owners really care about that. So I do think there's a little bit of an element of not wanting people complaining about having to go overseas. And it sucks for the players. It sucks for the coaches. For the executives, it's great. They go over there, they'll have 3 or 4 dinners, they'll get to meet people, they'll see things, all that different stuff. If you're in it, if you're a player or a coach, you're basically just going over there to play a football game the same way you would be if you were going to Cincinnati or Nashville or Tampa or wherever else. It's just a longer trip, and there's all kinds of logistical hoops that you have to jump through you wouldn't have to jump through otherwise. And of course, for all of those guys, the mindset is, how is this going to affect the bigger picture of our entire season?
Listen, speaking of international games, there's 9, and some of these games would be the best game of the weekend. And I think your point is well taken, is that the owners really care about this, and owners are ultimately commissioners' bosses. I actually looked at the Christmas games and the Thanksgiving games. Easily the best slate in my lifetime.
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And first of all, the Christmas stuff is a direct hit at the NBA. That's obvious. But I will tell you this, that as well run as the NFL is, and as intentional as they are, I don't think, in my opinion, they've necessarily done a great job on Thanksgiving through the years. They've a lot of times the day after Thanksgiving, there's more good college football games I like. I thought Thanksgiving and Christmas were insane this year.
So here's what they're looking to do, right? And I had Ani Bose tell me this last year as their VP of broadcasting. I talked to Hans Schroeder about this yesterday. And I think part of what they're doing is it's a shift philosophically. It used to be that you take the 4 o'clock Dallas window on Thanksgiving, and you would say, well, we don't need to put a big brand name team in there because that's going to get a huge rating otherwise anyway. So let's just throw whoever in there, and that game will be propped up by the window.
Yeah.
Last year that shifted. last year they said, let's swing for the fences. Let's try to break records. So if you look in the opener, they put the Cowboys opposite the Eagles. And then on Thanksgiving, they put Mahomes and the Chiefs opposite the Cowboys.
Yep.
And so the mentality had shifted a little bit to, instead of using the window to prop up the game, let's use the game to prop up the window and really try to break records and all of that different stuff. And so I think you see that all over the schedule here. You've got the Super Bowl rematch, obviously, in the kickoff game. And then, like you said, Christmas is unbelievable. Thanksgiving's unbelievable. Here's the other thing, is these are all going to be packages that they're going to be looking to sell when they get back to the negotiating table with the broadcast networks and with the streamers. And you already see it with what they're doing with Netflix, right? Netflix has got, like, what you call, like, quote unquote, this special events package. Week 1, week 18, Thanksgiving Eve, and the 2 games on Christmas, a 5-game package. That's really the idea here, is like, how can we create something that's valuable for the networks, for the streamers to bid on? And, obviously this has been sliced up different ways. I think where it winds up hurting you a little bit, Colin, because remember, this is a zero-sum game.
Right.
Go and look at week 16 on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's that Christmas weekend.
Yeah.
Right now. And look, a couple of games are going to fall out of the Saturday window, so this will change. But right now, the 1 o'clock window is 2 Fox games, 2 CBS games, and that is it.
Yeah.
And then the late afternoon window is 1 Fox game, 1 CBS game. Now, one of those games is Niners Chiefs. That's a huge game, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's 6 games total on Sunday afternoon, 2 more coming. It's really light. Sorry, Scott Hansen, but it's really light in there. So, like, that's where all of this is, like, I think incurring a cost, and they're going to have to figure out how to navigate that. But that's why they want to go to 18 games, because they want more inventory to deal with this sort of thing.
Okay, so the NFL bailed on something I think they should have bailed on, that you don't have to put everybody on primetime once. And I think teams that are poorly run year after year, poorly owned, shouldn't be on TV. And the NFL's bailed on that. I was a little surprised, maybe because of Brady's ownership, Fernando Mendoza. The Raiders feel bigger. I also think John Spytek, I think Spytek had a great draft and offseason.
Yep.
Linderbaum, I think they went and found 6 starters. Even Naylor, the receiver from Minnesota, I think said,
Love Naylor. N'Kobe Dean, Quay Walker. Yeah.
I mean, they went and found 6 good starters. I was shocked that the Raiders didn't have a prime time. I mean, I look at this schedule. I mean, the Fox, again, Raiders, Rams on Fox, but there's some games here that I think I'm interested in.
Yeah, and I always think the rookie quarterbacks are interesting, and I think you're right. Like, I probably would have looked at that and said, like, we get to November, December, Mendoza, at least history tells us Mendoza will probably be starting.
Yes.
And that's going to be of interest to people. So you could take a Raiders game in November or December and maybe throw it on a Thursday night, right? Like, I thought that would have made some sense. But, they're one of 5 teams. That's a crazy number. One of 5 teams to not get any primetime games. And again, I think this is like leaning back into that whole thing. Like, and this is a bigger, conversation about television and the way the contracts work and the fact that everybody is spending so much for the contracts, and it isn't tiered as much as it used to be, where Monday Night Football costs less than Sunday Night Football. So you're okay giving maybe a little less to ESPN in that scenario. They feel like they've got to give a really good product to everyone, to all the different broadcast partners. Yep. And so, it's interesting. We talked about the give and take a second ago, right? So what the give and take is for this on this is that certain premier teams now are feeling the brunt of it and having to play all the midweek games. The Rams, and I've got this up now, like right in front of me, the Rams schedule. So they play that Thursday, which is a Friday in Australia, then Monday. Then they've got another Monday game 4 weeks after that. So that's 2 short weeks in the first 6 weeks of the season. Then they don't actually have a bye, because they don't have a full bye, because they've got that Wednesday game, which with a bye in front of it, a Thursday after that. Then they play on Friday again on Christmas. And so when you are taking teams, again, the 5 teams, the Jets, the Titans, the Raiders, the Cardinals, and the Dolphins out of the mix, that means you're putting more weight. You're putting a heavier burden on the premier teams. And there are 8 teams that have 6 or 7 primetime games, which is an incredible number. but that's a burden that those guys, that all those teams have to take on.
So I have had a player and an executive in the NFL in the last 5 or 6 weeks question Omar Khan and really what's happening with the Steelers. They got worked in the draft on Mekhi Lemon. Very embarrassing. This Aaron Rodgers situation's weird. He's in Pittsburgh. They don't know where he's at. That's not good to get out. Now, in fairness to the Steelers, they are old school. They still spend more money than anybody on defense. I mean, they've been tone deaf for years. I mean, they went offense, but it's Mike McCarthy. We all said that's a safe hire. But I look at the Aaron Rodgers situation, and I know Aaron, this is his personality. He likes control. He's going to do things on his watch. Now, he gets surprised when the Packers and the Jets move off him. But this feels weird. What is going, I mean, by Aaron standards, it feels weird. What's going on?
I think there are two things. I think the first thing is, like, I don't think ownership there wants to sink to the bottom of the league, which has colored a lot of the decision-making there. And I think, like, a lot of football people would tell you that this is probably the point to rip the Band-Aid off. In fact, you could have made an argument for that a year ago. They were an older team a year ago, but they bring in Rodgers to take the last swing at it, and it didn't quite work out to the level that they had hoped. So, okay, like now in 2026, you rip the Band-Aid off. And this would have been the year where it's like, okay, like maybe we hire a Chris Shula to be our head coach, go with a 30-something guy like we've always done, and we hit the reset button on the roster. Instead, they go the other way, which I think telegraphed they don't want to sink to the bottom of the league. So that meant bringing TJ Watt, Jalen Ramsey, and Cam Hayward back. And if you look at what they did in acquiring veteran players, Michael Pittman, almost 30 years old, Jamel Dean, almost 30 years old, Rico Dowdle, a running back going into his 8th year, like those were their big time additions. So they've almost leaned further into what's an older roster that isn't built for Will Howard or Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
So now they're leveraged in, like you said, on trying to win now with this group here. And Aaron Rodgers has, you know, quite a bit of leverage in this situation, looking at like where everyone is at. Maybe he doesn't want to play for 10 or $15 million next year. Maybe he wants a little bit more than that. Does that make things awkward? I still think that piece of it has to be worked out. I think the likelihood is that he's there, but I mean, you already came for a cut rate last year. I think it was $12.5 million. You came for a lot less than what you're worth last year. Are you willing to do that again? Was there an expectation you would do that again? And if you want more, how much more? Like, I think all of that plays into how this is going to play out over the course of the next couple of weeks before they get to their veteran mandatory minicamp.
So it used to be you'd give a quarterback 3 years, maybe 4. You know, and then the Mannings, Peyton Manning famously had like a year 4 where a lot of interceptions, and Eli was a little bit of a slow starter. That's not the league now. Usually by the second season. So you look at the draft, Caleb Williams hit, Drake May hit, Jaden Daniels, when healthy, hit, Bo Nix hit. I think Michael Penix is on the clock this year. Tua is there. They'll go to Tua very quick. By bringing in Kyler Murray, and that we've seen this in the league, Sam Darnold's a great example, Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith in Seattle, we've seen quarterbacks who are talented go to places that have dysfunction upstairs, and then they go to a well-run operation. I view the Vikings as smart, well-run operation. They got to get the GM. But I mean, to me, the signal is the J.J. McCarthy thing publicly. We'll say this, but it's over. Do you think it's a real competition?
I do. But I think the context of it's a lot different. I think what is lost here to some degree is that they did want to create competition for him last year. And because Daniel Jones had a better opportunity in Indianapolis, and because Sam Darnold had a better opportunity in Seattle, they weren't able to get either of those guys back, but they wanted both. They wanted one or the other back.
Right.
They wanted one or the other back in the room with JJ to compete with him. Now, when that didn't work out, they went all in. They said, we're giving you all the reps. We're giving you all the work with your teammates. We're giving you a chance to build the confidence of everyone around you. And we know how that worked out, right? So now I think they're doing what they intended to do last year, which is we're going to put the heat on you. You are off scholarship, and we're going to see how you react.
Yeah.
And I think that it's probably a way of accelerating the process of evaluating him, right? In that, like, now he knows he's on the clock. And now he knows that, if he can't, and this is not like one of those situations where it's just like, we're bringing in somebody to push him. No, like Kyler's coming to win the job, And so, yes, it's a competition, but the context of the competition is different than it would have been last year. If they had successfully worked that out last year where Darnold or Jones had come back, I think the idea would have been like, let's let JJ beat him out. I don't think that's what it is this year. Right. I think this year it's let the best man win. We've got some veteran players on our roster and a really good core. We're not going to throw this year overboard in the name of quarterback development. We're just going to put the best guy out there. And if the best guy is JJ McCarthy, God bless, he becomes the quarterback. Right. But there is no there's no more like, oh yeah, we spent the 10th pick in the draft on him, so Ty goes to him. Yeah. I don't think that's what it is at all anymore.
Yeah. All right, Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback. That stuff on the Niners that you brought out is funny, and I think it's accurate. Listen, I'll give you one. Last night, I just said this last hour, is the NFL told teams, we're not going to edit your social media. We trust your judgment, right? And some teams did really funny stuff. Yeah. I did not, but they do not like friendly fire. I thought the Chargers social media team taking a shot at Vrabel, they don't like that. I saw little tweets last night about, and I thought, I don't think that's smart. I don't love it.
But the Chargers have a history with it, though. They took shots at Harrison Butker. They took a shot at Deshaun Watson. They took shot at Tyreek Hill. Those are all sensitive situations, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll tell you which one was good. The Titans one was awesome.
Oh, it was great.
I don't know.
It was great.
Yeah.
No, I think, listen, social media is funny. I always say, you can get fired for a post. You're not going to get a job promotion for a post. I'd be very careful. Yeah. We've seen companies go sideways, but I just, when I saw those, I thought, I don't know if the league loves that. But maybe you're right.
I will say this, though, for the Chargers, it was subtle. And I do think to some degree, now the Vikings had a little reference in there if you looked for it. And I'm not talking about the fake reference. There was the see the comments thing on the on their reference to the Patriots. I do think if no one had touched it, then the story would have been that no one touched it. And so I think in that way, the Chargers kind of bailed everybody else out because now the league doesn't have to answer that question.
You're one step ahead of me, Albert, as always. That's funny. Good seeing you, bud.
Good to see you, Colin.